So I know, are we okay with those diagrams? Yeah, yeah, that was cool. Yeah, so that's good. Did I add, I don't know if I managed to do this. Did I show you this? Am I increasingly ridiculous? Oh, so this is a bit of a funny thing I was trying to do. These are just all the power danger curves for the Discworld books, right? So that's just them. And this is a bit of a funny thing, but it's power is the top one and danger. And so that's just sort of a raw thing. And then and I know I have the, what the histogram kind of looks like and then the SVD thing. So I'm trying to build up like what's the good set of stuff that we want. So this is a basic thing. And they're all, one thing that you'll see, and we sort of did it, although we use books of similar lengths, right? So these are all, narrative time is the same in all of these. This is actually the number of words into the book along the bottom. So some books are very short. This is actually really a comic book. Some are very short, and so that's shown. So you see some work where they're stretched or shrunk, if you like. So that's sort of a Procrustean approach to these things, and it's a bit dangerous, right? Because that's not really, we could stretch this one out, but that's not how you read it. So you can't do that. You have to do it like this. And the thing I was trying to play around with this was to put it into polar coordinates, but I was doing this last night and it didn't work out. So, or I haven't quite finished it. The idea would be, we've got power and danger, and so it's a point in this plane. So of course we've got the radial length there, and then the angle. So I was doing a thing, just in MATLAB, you can get back where the angle between pi and minus pi. And if you just do that, then you get a lot of like this kind of stuff, because as it goes across that cut, it's going to go and bounce around. So I was trying to clean that up, and I haven't got it right. But basically, you want, as it winds around, it's going to go, 180. It's going to come back to 360. Then, if it's wound around like this, it'd be 720. So that's not quite right either. But eventually, what this is in terms of, this should be units of pi, I think. Yeah, so it's going to be pi. It's divided by, right. So it's in, I can't remember exactly what I did for this last one, but so this would be pointing straight up. So pi over 2 is straight up. So this would be the danger one. This would be power. Sorry, I'm sorry. You're okay. You're okay. We're just gonna let you feel okay.
I just breathe.
I do this myself. Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah. You all right? Every time this happens, my wife has to say, "You're right," because sometimes she's had to call 911 because my lips turned blue and I couldn't breathe. Okay.
Sorry.
My fun thing is I have my vocal cords can snapshot doing that, and it just goes. It happened once. I woke up one morning and coughed and went. I didn't know what was going on. This is what I found out later on. I'm like,
That sounds scary.
lips turned blue, and Amy called 911, and which mainly means you get lots of firemen turn up. They're usually the best. And eventually I could sort of breathe through like what felt like a straw, and eventually, but it happened for a month every day. That was fun. Got used to it. I still can't eat hot food. Anyway, it's a fun thing about me. So if you want to take me out, give me a jalapeno. I know that's more complicated than this. So I'm sorry. I hope you're okay. I just almost died. Damn it. Stupid thing, breathing. It is the first thing, right? Like the talking bit is like strapped on like fourth or fifth. Linguistics, right? Like isn't talking,
It's not first.
it's not number one, right? So there's like breathing, there's the food thing as well. I mean, in terms of like making a machine, it's like, oh yeah, let's repurpose that piece as well. And talking's like, I don't know, whatever, it's the fifth or sixth use of, yeah. I mean, it's very weird to like have a little wobbly thing in there. I mean, air is food, right? So we're constantly eating food. We actually swim through food. It's our first food. And it's fine until it's all fine until you have some breathing thing, and you're like, oh, breathing is really important. Yeah. I know a lot of people get through life without problems, but I have like asthma and stuff like that. So you see what I'm trying to do? I'm trying to turn it into, like, I think the angle might be the most salient thing, because then you'd see if it was like this one, if it's kind of following along here, this is like really a power one. And as it goes, like this would be pointing down. So this is sort of safe. So you could label this. Would this be power, safe?
It's kind of like directions on like a compass.
Yeah, right, right. So it's going to, because, I mean, it's just, this doesn't, we're going to get this right. I think hopefully whatever we do, because this doesn't, right? This is fine, but it's confusing. Can't tell. And even when you put in the off-axis ones, the dangerous power and safe power ones, it's hard for your brain to get it. So I think we can do it. So this is power. This would be safe. Power again. It's going up towards a danger one. But I don't think I've got this. I think I'm still making mistakes in the flipping. But to start with, it was going between -1 pi, say, and pi, and every time it went like across the cut point, or the branch line, if you like, then branch cut thing, then it would we go pop here. You get this kind of thing as it sort of wobbled around, maybe. So I was kind of hoping to. I don't know if you guys, but in complex, you talk about winding numbers, like things wind around, and that happens in
If you have this in like radians, couldn't you essentially plot this on like a unit sphere to see how it moves around, like rather than trying to put it like flat, like the polar coordinates like a flat thing, you could look at it like a spherical.
So that's, I mean, that's
Yeah.
well, so you could take out the that's not right either. Yeah, I mean, it is, yes, you're watching it, but then when we go to polar coordinates, right, we've got angle and radius. So radius is plotted on these other ones, but it's not, or magnet. Yeah. What's that?
They look like proteins, rather.
These other blobs,
Yeah.
little squelches. Yeah, they're little nuts. I mean, their story is this little nutty thing, and it has sort of a typical grain to it. That's what this is. I mean, those. I think that they should go pop, 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 pop. It's kind of nice. Um, but they're all compressed. Time is taken out of those, right? So they're flattened. So we want to be able to get this, and this would be something you could watch if you were. I mean, we have the whole story, but we want some. There are two big things, right? When you have a temporal thing, one is like you have the whole story, you want to analyze it, and then you can do things like, oh, we know what the overall mean is, we can take that out. But then there's also just we don't like it's coming in real time, so you always want to be thinking about what happens to, how can we. You don't want to get stuck on like, oh, I have a book, I can analyze that. You want to have real time stuff as well, and we're still trying to get that to work, of course, in lots of ways, but. Because thinking about news or, I mean, here we are in time, right? It's just somehow moving forward, which we use a spatial metaphor, which is ridiculous. Anyway, so I know it doesn't seem right. If you look at that one, you can see whatever I've done is not. It doesn't seem right, or maybe it does. I'm going to have to look at it because maybe there is this sort of switch, but I don't think it's that fast. Maybe it is. Oh, and I did a smoothing of more further out. What do you think? All right. I mean, basically, this is what we have. I mean, it's 2 dimensions. It is a point. It's moving around. I want to be able to kind of make it talk. And this is useful because now we can see this is temporal order in terms of when these books were written. But now we can make a plot where we have, say, the centroid and the angle, right? We could make some other plot and like where are all the books, for this particular thing. And then, maybe another writer or maybe all writers for something or all something for a genre. You could start to step out and get a bigger picture. But it does seem like it was an interesting. There wasn't something sitting, at least in MATLAB, that would easily do this well. So I kind of had to think about is that what? Something like yeah. So well, I guess it's like this. Oh yeah. So I did center it, right? So maybe this is the mean for a book, and so all right. So you move to that. You move to that axis, right? So this would be power and danger like this, and then we move the axis. Yeah, we center it around. This is a bit of a funny thing. So we're going to center it around the mean for that, the mean point. And given this is the mean power and danger score for it, and then the story, winds around like this. What we're worried about is when it goes through here and then comes back and comes back. This is like almost pi, and then this is almost minus pi. So you have to make a little correction. So as you go from here to here, it will go from plus pi to minus pi, and we want to say, well, it's going from we don't want to switch. We don't want to drop back to minus pi. We want it to go to pi plus epsilon. And that means you had to be, if this is power and danger, that you have to be on the negative side of this one, and you have to go from like positive to negative or negative to positive. There are these little, so you can start to kind of make a little thing that detects crossing this line, this one. So you find every time it crosses, and depending on which way it went, you add 2 pi or subtract 2 pi, so you can track the angle, so you can get the actual angle relative to 0. Right. So it is a bit of an interesting thing. I mean, obviously, if you feed a point into this thing and say, oh, what's the angle of it, depending on how you set it up, it's like, well, it can only give you this angle, or if it's here, it's this angle. But if we're moving around and you have to keep track of it moving around, then you have to do something a little bit. Like this one looks like it worked. So this would be weak. This would be powerful. This would be weak. And this, in between. But it seems to be sort of going around like this mostly. But even that doesn't really feel like it's great. But we'd make it labeling: power, weak, danger. Well, maybe we don't do this and we stay between the -1 and 1. Let me see if I can do that. Right now, this is madness for you guys. Glasses. So this is in narrative time series. I've got these ridiculous names. This one is 2 times pi, right? Cumulative sum. So I'm just going to I'll take that out and let's see what happens to that. I think I can do that. The all-important out of cheese error. Ignored.
What's that for?
So there's the wizards, young wizards come up with a sort of computer thing in the Disk world. They're in the high energy magic building or program, and it's led by Ponder Stibbons. It's called Hex. It's a huge contraption which the older wizards absolutely despise, right? And it's got occasionally it comes out with a little sign on a spring that says "out of cheese error." There are ants and bees involved. Long-term memory is bees, like they kind of move around. There's some ants go between pipes everywhere. And it's quite a contraption, but it's an AI thing. It starts to get a little intelligent. Have you come across Hex? Yeah.
The bees are the long-term memory and the ants.
I think the bees are the high. There's a long-term. They kind of go out of the building. It's like there's a long-term memory for the hive. Hex.
They built recurrence using bees and ants. That's so cool.
And the Arch-Chancellor is the main, the head of it, who's a very old sort of curmudgeonly character, has this very stupid thinking machine thing. He's that sort of person and has a big argument with it or whatever. But it's very enjoyable. Okay, this is what happens if you don't do any corrections, right? This is sort of the thing you get to start with, and it's a bit yucky, right? So like Hogfather, so this is plus pi and minus pi, so this would be weak and weak here. Half pi, so this is danger, safety, power. So this is sort of starting off in this dangerous, powerful one, goes up to weak, and then it's like, right, it's not really changing here. It's just jumping based on this measure of the angle. And then it's more durably in here for a while, and it does that again. I was just sort of hoping to like, like this could be just, you want to have this just sort of, it would probably go like that, right? This should, it looks like this should just do this.
Is this like your progress from like Tuesday?
Yeah, it's just some stupid stuff I was messing with. Right. So, right, I'm trying to turn this into, and it's not, see, these are off scale, right? So this is, I've completely ignored it, but this is the magnitude of the, right, this is R, right? This is theta, and this is R. And just in these, it's tiny. So it's got its own little variation that we would probably have to plot on a separate thing or rescale or whatever. Damn it.
The like giant spikes or drops, those are essentially crossing boundaries, right?
Yeah, it's when you're going from here to here, right? So Hogfather, this one, it's so started in, this is powerful, dangerous, this is dangerous, it's sort of moving. So, it would be winding around like this, and then it gets to here, if we're just thinking about the angle, and then it's sort of like messing around a little bit over here.
Yeah.
And that's good. And then eventually it actually does start to wind back this way.
What if it was like literally plotted on like a unit circle? When you lose, like, I feel like you lose like time. Not necessarily, because you can connect the dots. So yeah, they might like go back.
Yeah, but it's gonna travel around the circle, right? So that's what. It would be this one. It would be this one without. What you do is you take out the length, and it would be just the angle, and it would be just traveling around this thing. So you can't see what it was, but you could make a histogram around it.
Or you could wind out. Yeah, this is where like a winding out. If you have like an animation, like we do this thing at work where it's like similar where we're trying to measure like distance on a circle or the spins, and like they build like points for each iteration. It's just like a GIF that like goes around, and you see it like build out from scratch.
So I had this one.
Which I think is like a similar visualization.
Oops. Figure 7.
It's like each ring is a different like time, and then you can show each ring is a time that's faded, and then the point at which the power danger is on the unit sphere is like so that time is like a opaque point. Distance from center is directly. Yeah, and then you can connect all the different.
What is wrong with this?
As the time rings move out, all points on different rings. That's super useful. Yeah, I feel like that might be. It's a lot, but.
Okay.
Well, the bar for these is like word cloud.
So here's an example, right? This is. I've kind of made a mess of that. This is an example, right? This is the Shepherd's Crown. Yeah, it's the last one, and so this is where the book travels, and this is the start, and this is maybe the first 1,000, right? And then it's just going to sort of fill in and leave a little bit of a mark. So this, there's this kind. This is just playing around, but this is something. I guess I've got on too fine a thing. It's pretty fine. There's time ticking away, so you'd have to have a time thing. My view of this would be, so the idea I kind of had was this, and then the time series next to it, and it would show you. So there's an animation thing that would kind of show you where it is as it moves through. It kind of goes in blocks, right? So there's like, here's the wiggles. You've got the whole thing. And it's like, okay, we're in this section, and that corresponds to this section. You could step through it. But but that is something that you have to run, which is fine. I mean, I understand that it's fine. Maybe that's so. You see towards it does it. It got pretty dangerous there. I don't. When's the other one? Is it going to go up to danger again, or have we finished? I've got it on too fine a resolution, I guess. Yeah, so up to danger again there, and then it finishes. Yeah.
I think dynamic windows are important too, because not every story is told the same
Yeah, so it's interesting because we've got some work with our postdocs looking at that, and what's the typical ups and downs?
It's finding the peaks. Like if you have like a peak to peak, maybe like that's your window.
Yeah, no, so exactly right. So we kind of, so I agree with that too. So there's something. Did I have like this one? Like this is sort of begging for, doing something that says, oh, there's this, and then there's this, and there's this.
Yeah, that's a window.
Right.
For a static,
Right. But like that's this is what I want. This is be the decomposition of this story would be something like there are only sort of three possible things, which is like this is basically flat. There's a drop, basically flat, basically a rise. Like there aren't really sine waves in these things, or anything like that. It's just sort of piecewise things, and you would break it down like that. And we still don't quite have that. But I mean, you could see a smoothing thing. You could just tick, 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 and say, yeah.
I was thinking of a way, like, to make the image before static, right? So if you take the one that you were clicking through, which is like what I was talking about, like the wings. Yeah, I think that. So.
Well, that's what all of these little ones.
Right.
All of these are right. The one I was just going through is down here.
It's similar to that, but like there you have like the distance and time being represented as like the point as it actually moves.
Time, right?
Well, so instead, it would be just the angle like you have before, like on a unit circle, but the radius is time. The radius is not just static.
Oh, you want to make a spiral?
Yeah. Not necessarily even a spiral.
I mean, it would
do, like,
wind out.
Just rings like on top of each other, and then like so you plot the ring to denote the time, and then it's like pretty translucent, and then the point at which it's actually on the unit sphere for that time ring, you put a point that's opaque, and then the next time ring is a little bit larger, right, and outside that first time ring.
Yeah, so times the
Yeah, and then the radius is time, and as you go out, you put your point on the circle where it falls for the angle. Okay, so I guess what if like I guess you wouldn't even want to measure lines then, right? Because what if you had like not if your resolution of your time rings is very, very tiny. Yeah. If your resolution of your time rings is very, very wide, you might want to do so.
Did we look at that for the coronavirus in the New York Times? I had the visualization.
That's
what you're thinking about. Yeah. It is. I mean, the thing is that time is.
It is strange.
I
know. That's what I'm saying. If you do the time rings, it might work because you can like proportionally. Radius.
It's opening up though as well. I mean, I think this can be transformed into something that is like this. Clearly, should just sort of go here, and then we'd label that as powerful. This will be weak. But as it's coming through, as you go past weak, because you're rotating around, it's going to go up to safe, right? The next thing up is safe. So, it's like northeast, southwest, but north, like you'd be wrapping around. So you'd have this repeating thing. Maybe that's not. I mean, you could have bands of colors in a way, right? That would sort of show that this is powerful, and this is powerful, this is weak, and so you could see it like that, maybe. I mean, this was just upsetting, though. Maybe there's just a better way to treat that as like to sort of. I mean, the other thing I thought was, well, okay, every time it flops from that, just remove those lines, right? I mean, that's maybe that's enough. That was the other approach. I kind of went in a different direction, but that would be the other thing. If it goes from there to there, just don't connect those things, which is a little bit of messing around with the, how do you do that with plotting
Like piecewise.
It's piecewise, and you don't want it to be insane. Of course, it's going to be insane, but that might be the thing that works. Would that visually be okay? Because then you just sort of see. I mean, it'll just look like this cleaned up, right? Be like, and then.
I think the only thing that might be confused, say for the example, the one you were just pointing out.
This one?
Yeah, it might be confusing there because it might not be obvious if you just remove that first big line that it's wrapping up back to the top.
Yeah.
Like I think for the one above it for some reason is a little more intuitive that is what's happening. But for that one, it's hard, I think, to intuitively see.
That it wraps. Yeah. I mean, it is on a cylinder.
But if you have colors, it might be.
It might help, right? Because you could see this is the same. We can connect these and make it a donut.
Mm-hmm.
Time is a flat circle.
Time is a flat.
That's from the first season of what is it? Something Detective. It was an HBO thing. Anyway, it's pretty messed up. It was interesting. With McConaughey or whatever his name is, sitting there with it, like pulling a can apart. Yeah. It was messed up. What was it? The dot is like Tuesdays or something? Yeah. Jeremy. Yeah. Jeremy Bearmy's the best. People have T-shirts with that, I think. Yeah. Let's get a Jeremy Bearmy. Is it just like that? Or was it? There was a Bearmy. Yeah. Yeah. Good Place Wiki. Let's go there. Solid. Oh, come on. Show us the picture. Oh, I guess it's in. No, that's not it. Images. Right. That's it. I'm sorry. They had so much in that thing to like. How can I? Is that what I need to do to make that bigger? God damn it. Yeah. Oh God. Was it really labeled like this? This is some madness, right? Yeah. Oh, this looks pretty dangerous. Yeah. Someone's tried to label that. Yeah. Maybe it's this one. Yeah. That's how time works. Time is the big dimension for us, right? Like, yeah. We have to get that right. So, look, I'm looking at branch cuts. And these should be stretched out a little bit as well, right? I mean, I think that's fair, but still. I mean, once we get this, and it's like, then you can do another analysis on this. I mean, I think we do need this, and maybe there's a thickness in the line is another way to just incorporate the radius, right? Or maybe we just plot that separately. I don't know, but we're trying to flatten the thing so we can just see a graphical thing, which we're good at. We like that. The last continent. I mean, really, that's really pointing in one direction to start with. It's really clear. Terrible book. Okay. All right. Thinking through things. Yep. This is one of the longer ones. Good stuff in there. And of course, it's a function of smoothing, right? So this is 1,000, 1,000 words, right? So that's what's going on there. Okay. So I do want to kind of travel through this. This is sort of part of a very long-term effort to try and measure stories and quantify stories in anything, but particularly in news and history and so on. So Allo Taxonometry is kind of the core of this work, and in fact, the paper that I'm kind of going to get to basically is like 10 papers went into that was producing it. It's just sort of, basically invented this so we could get there. All right, so let's see if we can understand this. Allo taxonometry, right? So that was the comparing distributions. So what do we have for Twitter? We have, for example, or any big large text, right? We have, this is one day. This is the Charlottesville. It's the Sunday of the, where there's bad things have already happened. Heather Heyer was murdered, vehicular homicide on the Saturday, and then this is the day after. This is the day after the 2016 election. So they're just big days in history. Very characteristic kind of zip histogram thing here, which I call an Allo Taxonometry. Very, very typical of natural language to have this sort of scaling. And we have this texture of words that are more important on each day for this particular thing, rank, turbulence, divergence. And we get two things. We get a score of how different these distributions are, right? So there's some measure of that. And then there's a ranking of, and beyond that, a quantitative piece of how much these words contribute. It's a particular kind of choice. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to say, okay, let's take, this is what we're going to do. We're going to take all the tweets that contain the word Trump. This is just a thing. It could be anything else, but it's basically, it's looking at a president. We're going to take every tweet that contains Trump. We're going to take from all of Twitter, and then we'll take only the Latin character words, just to simplify that. So hashtags are out, et cetera, et cetera. So just the Latin alphabet. Okay, so we've sort of got this lens, we've trimmed it down, and the game will be, this is the idea, the game is going to be this. We're going to say what happened on this day. The idea will be, let's compare it to a year before. And we'll also do this thing, we'll say, okay, we'll compare it to a day before, 2 days before, 3 days before, 7, 14, 28. So we'll kind of have this logarithmic way of looking back into history. So if you compare a day to itself, there's no change. If you compare it to the day before, there's some change, and that varies depending on history, right? History could explode, so it could be a big difference. It could be not so much. There's a ton of stuff that I did that's not published or whatever. It's just billions of graphs and things. But I think in one thing I found, like using this kind of thing, that if you compare day to day, there was a pair of dates in 2012 which were the least different from each other. And when you look at that, nothing's happening, right? There's no big event in the world. Nothing exploded. But the things that are happening that people are talking about, because of course there's always going to be a difference. It's going to be sports, soccer in particular, music, right? So BTS, Lady Gaga, all these people get talked about, and celebrities, right? There's sort of, and movies, right? There's sort of this general kind of background chatter. So that's when, if you're looking at Twitter and kind of monitoring it, and that's what people are talking about, things are kind of okay. This is like the resting state of Twitter, is sort of, maybe some cat pictures and stuff as well, right? But there's that's sort of what bubbles up a lot. And then it sort of goes to hell. Russia invades Ukraine. Trump says that, things explode on top of that. All right, so how do we figure out what was important? And again, it's through Twitter, all these problems, blah, 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 but it's through Twitter. And so we have this massive data set. And particularly with Trump, we have a huge data set, because if you find every tweet that contains Trump, as I've shown you, it's basically a function word. So, we get vast numbers of tweets every day that contain the word Trump. So what we're going to do, this is 2016 onwards. Eventually it went up to the end of 2021. I think I've done it for. And what we're going to say is, we're going to use this Allo Taxonometry thing. We're going to tune it to a certain value. And we're going to say, okay, the first day of 2016, let's compare it to the first day of 2015. And we keep doing that. We go all the way through. So this day, we're going to compare it to 2019, 10:05. So it's like, what happened a year before? and we look at the words that contribute the most to the difference on the the day we're interested in. So you can't see this, so I'll kind of dig into it. But basically, there's a date here, and then there's this ordering of words, the most important words down to the least important words. And of course, we have, in principle, millions of these words. We have a big ordering of words. So we sort of just take the top 10 there. Then we do some organize it. So this is another figure. We're going to do it at the day scale. What's the most narrative? This is the term I'll use. Most narratively dominant word at the day scale. So you pick a date in this last sort of 6 years, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 6 years, and we'll have the word that was in tweets around that contain Trump, that using this rank turbulence divergence, you could use other divergences, that was most, right? There's some difference between these if distributions. If you look back a year, what's the word that was really most pushing it apart now? What's the word that's sticking up the most? Right, both of those distributions have the and of and at the top, but we're looking at the top of this lexical derivative of sorts. So each word, each date now is represented by one word, and we can dig into it. And these little pink bars in here, and you can see them over here, they represent a next level thing, which is what fraction of tweets are really just retweets of Trump. So this is narrative control. So this is a measure of narrative control. It's kind of special to Twitter. It's special to Trump. And then we'll do some other things with it. But so this is going to be day scale and then the week scale. And then let's try to understand that. I think I have a better plot here. So this is through the end of 2021. So this is a thing to look at. I want to spend some time. So we've gone through all of these machinations to get out the most dominant word. And on the next slide, we do it for 2 grams as well. So this is different to saying, here's what the story is, but here are kind of keywords into that story. So let's look at what happened. So early on, right, this is Trump. The election is here, is in here. So early on, this is all Trump running, right? So you can see there's stuff about Hillary, and then Cruz and Rubio, right? They're his main rivals for the nomination. Some things are happening here with Arizona, some bad things usually around Trump with women. Paul Ryan is here. This is Bernie. There was I think a debate in Orlando or maybe a rally. And so it's sort of popping up. The numbers here give you this, how much of it is really due to Trump being retweeted. So, 11, Clinton's the dominant word, and 1 in 10 of those Clintons is due to a retweet of Trump talking about it. Crooked is a huge contribution, right? So, and you see that in the next one, Crooked Hillary, right? That became a real catchphrase. He worked hard on those, right? There's Mini Mike for Mike Bloomberg, Lion Ted for Ted Cruz, and Little Marco, I think. Yeah, so, there's a lot of stuff about IQ, size, very raw, very basic stuff. And if we go back to Uziometrics, portraying people as weak and dangerous. So Hillary, for example, is variously demonized as being a dangerous person with the eating of babies or whatever, and also weak, like unhealthy, not well. A lot of the things about, say, you see this, it goes, people will say this about Trump too, of course, like losing the marbles thing, right? So that's a dangerous, weak kind of framing, that because if they have power, they're dangerous, but they're weak, their brain is gone. So it's interesting, that lens is interesting to say, like, when you're looking at some big rhetoric, just try to boil it down and see, like, what is this person trying to communicate in this essential way? What are they trying to paint? What are they trying to what box are they trying to put them into? I recommend it. So there's a lot of stuff in here that people will forget. There's Pence being chosen as his running mate. Khan, do you remember this? This is a Gold Star family, and this was a big thing where Trump mocked them essentially, and their son had been killed in Afghanistan, immigrant people from I think Pakistan, and they spoke very sort of powerfully, particularly the father, and he said things. Manafort appears. I mean, this is amazing, right? So Manafort, who worked in Ukraine for a long time. So Ukraine is amazingly a big thread through all this. He comes on as the in charge of the campaign. So that's his name appearing. This is Clinton saying deplorable, calling a basket of deplorables, and that gets lit up. You see, Trump doesn't have to say anything here. This is not him. He's not amplifying that. Debates. This is all this stuff with. Let's see what's on the next page with that. Sexual assault, right? So sometimes the 2 grams amplify, connect with these. Sometimes there are different things, but sexual assault. So this was Trump. This is the on the bus thing, right? The Hollywood business, right? So he kind of overcame that. It's the 3rd debate, and he managed to get around by bringing in people that had accused Bill Clinton of sexual assault. They were just sitting around him, various characters, and it just didn't really say anything. But anyway, it sort of managed to get through that. This is FBI. This is Comey investigating Hillary for finding what they found more emails supposedly on, and it's kind of extraordinary. It says, what's his first name? Wiener's laptop. So he had Hillary Clinton's main person, Huma, was married to what's his name? Anthony Weiner. Thank you. And they dig up his laptop and say there are more emails on that. And he has a whole sorted. I mean, he's just a bad thing to be connected to, but it was really bad emails again, and that kind of explodes it. This word is the first time this appears. This is very interesting, right? This is Trump saying the election is rigged. He's going to lose. If he loses, it's because it's rigged. He said that back here quite a bit, right? And that was story building. I'm going to say. I mean, it was. I mean, I sort of saw it right then. It was clever. It was story building. If he loses, he didn't lose. So he never loses, right? So then there's, then he wins, and you start to see inauguration. There are a few things. This is when Pence left Hamilton show because they were, said things to him. Russia appears here for the first time. I know I'm sort of going through this, but it's just like, this is amazing. And Meryl Streep wasn't happy, so that's what pops up there, and Trump talks about her. And then we get to the inauguration, and then things basically kind of explode, right? There's a ban that's an immigration ban from like 7 or 8 countries that's straight away. Flynn is in there. There are all these things that kind of blow up. So Russia's starts. There's Devin Nunes is here. So lots of things kind of blowing up, and then Comey is in here, and you see Mueller for the first time here. So this is really, things are really kind of moving around very quickly. This is Boy Scouts. This is Korea. This is North Korea the first time that's in there, and it's when he's like mocking the leader by calling him Rocket Boy or something like that. So that's like just sort of a posturing thing. There's the Boy Scouts about, I think it's about whether gay people could be involved. And then Charlottesville explodes, and this is, a huge thing. And then we have hurricanes. This is again Kim, North Korea. Puerto Rico, this is Hurricane Maria. This is really dominant for a while. Total disaster. And then, Mueller starts to kind of be a big story again. This is Parkland is here, right? So this is a terrible event in history again. Mueller, all the time. And Stormy Daniels first appears there too.
Was that LeVar?
Yeah.
Is that LeVar Ball?
Yes, because he talks some smack at
Why?
Trump.
That's so much LeVar Ball.
Yeah, because Trump said Trump. No, it's not actually. It's the father of like these 3 basketball players, right? I know.
No, it's
He should be he should be the next
I
Jeopardy
it's just
host.
crazy that-
Trump put in like something about him being the Jeopardy host, but no, it's actually about And I can't remember what LeVar Ball said, but he like said something, and then Trump's like, yeah, it's gonna turns the torch on him, right?
Well, hacking is like it's the same.
Well, so there was all this stuff about so that's like there were Clinton's thing was hacking, right? So it's
I just mean in terms of like that many mentions are Trump
Mhm.
and LeVar.
So Trump says something and it gets amplified, right?
Yeah.
The retweets of Trump. Sorry, yes.
Have you tried running? I know I've been really into this lately. Have you tried running like semantic analysis on these tweets?
No, no. I mean, if you can do it, you can do it. I mean that
Because it's like SVD.
it is yes, and
We like SVD.
we do. I guess there's latent Dirichlet allocation is sort of people can. I don't know. I think we still have a lot to go with. We've used it. Well, I mean, we've certainly used that sort of thing with topic detection. Like it's not as great as
It's a topic thing.
yeah.
But because you have the tweets which are already broken down into documents so neatly,
Yeah.
and then just seeing if they kind of if they came up with some of these groupings that you're coming up with.
Yeah. Well, I think they would. I mean, this is sort of just a dominant thing, but how could you? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is going in one direction for sure. Yeah. Yeah. Tweets are a little bit of small boxes, of course, which is,
I think that's okay for
okay.
for
The problem with that, some of those things, like you want them to be like what we're trying to do is like, I mean, what are the narratives, right? Can we use any of those things to get out? Here's the story, and I mean, these are these are keywords into the stories, and that's sort of it, which is a limit. I realize, but I just want to sort of move through this because Stormy Daniels appears here, but it sort of goes away. Kanye appears, like he says he likes Trump and Trump likes him. There's some other things. This is Roseanne Barr, blah blah blah. Some stuff. This is children. This is the border, right? So that's going to be the children and their parents. That's to do with that. So this is to do with um, children in camps. Fantastic. Exactly. Where is it?
Enemy of 22.2.
Yeah. So that's enemy of right. So the press is the enemy of the people. This is chillingly bad. So it's just a fragment. Of course, you need to know what that is. But this thing is very wag the dog, kind of like boop. Oh, hello, Space Force, which was like a Tuesday. So there's just sort of mayhem through here. There's Omarosa left. She used to be on The Apprentice, and she left. She was in the White House somehow, and then left and was really mad. Kavanaugh becomes the dominant piece here. Then this one pops up, Caravan, right? So there's a caravan of bad people are coming to the border. It's interesting to look at how much this is talked about. It surges before elections because this is now the 2018 midterms, and then just disappears. It gets brought up and just disappears. And you start, so this is Michael Cohen, right? He's fixer kind of character. You see all these other pieces in here, right? The shutdown, they sort of blame it on Pelosi. Bill Barr appears in here. This is Biden. So this starts to be the stuff about Ukraine. That's back in 2019. There are various other things happening. This is some Jeffrey Epstein, which you can see this is zero. He doesn't talk about Jeffrey Epstein. El Paso was a shooting. He's trying to buy Greenland. Hurricane Dorian. But I mean, it happened, right? So he's trying to buy that. And then Ukraine starts to be a thing. This is, the Kurds are sort of abandoned by the US, and that's what that is. And then talk of impeachment starts here, and you see that. So what you start to see as you go through this is you start to see stories get fixed. That's what I want to get to as well. And back here, there's like a lot of turnover, like a lot of stuff just going boop, 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 over and over. Mueller becomes a bit of a solid thing. Impeachment around Ukraine becomes a solid thing. And then you see the start of 2020, and this is you see Trump tweeting about Iran and Soleimani. So Soleimani is assassinated on the 3rd of January, and it's connected to the Benghazi embassy. It's a lot going on there. Is that true? But it's Iran. It's an Iranian general. He's assassinated. But then the impeachment story comes back, and that's where all these things happen. Lev Parnas, Binman. Bloomberg is talking about running, so he appears and goes away very quickly. But this is Trump, hammers him, calls him Little Mike. Coronavirus has started in January, but in fact, we have a paper on that. We sort of collectively took our eye off the ball. So January, China is suddenly building hospital things everywhere. It's like, that is really bad. It's really a bad sign. And it's just weird. I mean, people sort of, not just the US, but generally like, oh. And then this is the dominant story. And if you look at this, Trump does not tweet about coronavirus specifically. He uses it with maybe a capital C. He has some ways of talking about it, which are, not very friendly. I won't say what they are, but he does mention it, but he kind of mocks it. And it's like, there's all this stuff like it's going to go away, blah, blah, blah. But this is week after week after week. So this story is absolutely stuck. So gets to what I will call, so the story turbulence slows down here. And then there's a passage of time slows down here as well. And so I'll call this chronopathy. Because there's really, no one's at work anymore. Nothing seems to change. It's always the same sort of story every day. Until George Floyd is murdered. And you see Trump, like a third of the tweets around Trump about Minneapolis are from him. And so he starts to be able to kind of talk about that. This is when they have the Tulsa, right. That's when they have the first, this is trying to get out of the coronavirus thing. It's amazing. This is 2020. They have a rally, and we talked about the other day. What's his name? Used to be the pizza guy. No, he ran for president. Who am I talking about? He went, attended, and died. Herman Cain. Thank you. Sorry. So that happens all in there. This is Russian bounties. I remember that story. Russia offered bounties for killing U.S. troops. This became a story. It's gone. Portland and the coronavirus. See, coronavirus starts to come back. This is when they're talking about putting Trump on Rushmore. Coronavirus starts to come back. So this is a kill the monster story. I mean, the pandemic's killed the monster story. And, horror stories, the monster's never dead, right? So it comes back. And then this is all this stuff about messing with the mail to stop voting. This is back still this is August. Biden is now the clear person, so they're sort of attacking him. This is, forgotten his name, the teenager who, yes, murdered a couple of people and has been exonerated. Various other things. Bob Woodward has a book, doesn't really go anywhere, to be honest. COVID keeps coming back, and this is, in fact, when Trump gets infected with it, Biden's the dominant story, and again, Trump's being retweeted. And then we have the election, and you can see, he's talking about votes, Dominion, Georgia, this stuff about I'll help with the vaccine, and it's all about the election being stolen.
Sydney, the lawyer?
The lawyer, yes.
Okay.
The crack team, yep. Sydney.
With the Kraken.
Release the Kraken, yeah. Is she in here? Oh, well, it's not. It's a little. I can't see her. I know this. This is. I'm missing a bit here. Yeah. So if you go to the 2 grams, you can sort of see some variations, right? So there's Kyle Rittenhouse that actually being talked about back here. And then of course you have the insurrection, and that becomes the dominant thing. It gets some Marjorie Taylor Greene. She pops up a little bit, but this is Cheney is in here. This is sort of keeps going and going and going and going and going. This is 2021, so he's less talked about, and the stories become a little bit less. They're connected to him, but they get a little further away. Perhaps they're about other people, like Meadows, for example. Brandon, yeah, right. Let's go, Brandon. Yeah, right. So, but the capital becomes, the dominant thing for a while there. Which one? Yeah, it's Matt Gaetz. Yeah. So he's not really talking about him, but you see, that's Marjorie Taylor Greene as well. So And you can see sometimes these kind of pop up as the dominant 2 gram. The capital is clearly the dominant one for a long time, but it gets, Alec Baldwin is in here. That's the Rust shooting. It's getting looser around him here. So if you go here, this is Walter Reed. This is when Trump's taking the Walter Reed. That was bounties and American soldiers. They match up. There's some other things that are in different places, like Roger Stone. I think you see some other things, like Jesse Smollett, Tim Apple. That's when he. This is bad because that got into my head a little bit. But Tim, what's his name? Cook. Yeah, just doesn't hit me properly. Anyway, so Cambridge Analytica, Stormy Daniels is here. Right. So there's sometimes it's just that it matches, but sometimes there's a variation as well. So these are all sort of summary ones. There are then these kind of big, long, detailed PDFs that show tons of these. This is just a hand-selected set of stories. So this is trying to measure how much stories matter over time, right? So we've got all of those 1 grams and 2 grams, and then we can say, well, look, just as a thing, we said, like, if a 1 gram was a dominant story or 2 gram was a narratively dominant n-gram for at least 3 times, then we'll say, okay, let's look at its time series. So rigged, for example, this is only a little part of it because there'll be some of it, but this is just to sort of show you, like, this is how often the word rigged was talked about, just simply around Trump. And the orange one on the bottom is how much of this due to retweets of Trump. Yeah. The narrative control is all about Trump, right? So it's how much, like, if you go back to these things, wherever you see a lot of pink, that's stuff that is because of Trump or people retweeting Trump, right? So left Democrat, wherever left Democrats appeared, that was really due to him. Really, he has a lot of amplification here. Fake news took off here. But again, like coronavirus, he really isn't being amplified with that. That's the dominant story around him. He's not contributing to it. And he's not. He is talking about it, but he's not contributing it in the way that people are talking about it. So that's a huge change. And essentially, right, he's trying to break this story. And I'll show you some stuff on Tuesday of where, okay, there's the coronavirus, but then what are the next n-grams? Or coronavirus, and what are the next n-grams? And there are things like Obamagate, Flint, like you can see trying to change the story. This is politics in general. It's not just Trump, but it's not working because it is what everyone is talking about. His Space Force, little Space Force thing. So I just there's a hand selection to get them to fit in different ways. Some of them are full length ones. And then we have a whole set, which is just, I want to sort of look at it on Tuesday, which are PDFs and they're ordered temporally. But, there are many dominant things. So Obama, you can sort of see, like, he talks about Obama a little bit all along the way, and Obama is around Trump, but it goes away here, as we've sort of seen. Hillary doesn't get talked about either, but early on, tons. This is Hillary, Crooked Hillary. Crooked Hillary still coming up, still popping up now and then. It's, it's a classic. Some of the other ones with a lot of orange, right? There's fake news. That's really Trump. The fake news around Trump he's really talking about it. Witch hunt was a thing that he said over and over. Our country is an interesting one. It's a good rhetorical. Our country, very nationalism, right? Yeah, no, this is something that I had no idea was there, right? I had no idea, and I think fake news. I had to kind of see that he didn't bring it up. It came up after the election. And he doesn't, you see this, he's not really talking about it here much, but he gets it here and then uses it. He sees this is a pretty powerful thing. Witch hunt is his thing all along, but our country is really some kind of little rhetorical tick.
It's almost like fake news took over from Crooked Hillary.
Oh, yeah. Well, this is more general and powerful. Yep. Because this was universal, right? This is everything from the size of the the inauguration crowd, that sort of thing. So everything. So this is very powerful, and people just took it. Fake news. It's fake news. CNN is fake news. New York Times is fake news. So this is very important. Like, this is defending your story. This is weaponizing stories, and this is getting a little piece out there that people go, it's gone.
It's interesting for a witch hunt, right when it really starts to die, is right when you see fake news start to kind of like resurge again.
It's doing pretty well for itself. Yeah, the witch hunt.
It dies, and then
Yeah.
Fake news spikes.
This is of course coronavirus time. So here's coronavirus. This is how much it's talked around Trump, and there's no orange on the bottom.
Yeah, what's Trump talking about?
Well, he's talking about it. He's trying to talk about other things. When he does talk about it, he uses. I'll say he uses like China virus, right? He uses pejorative terms. He says it, especially early on. He says until about here, he's kind of saying it's not a big thing, right? It's not a big thing. You see Minneapolis, this is George Floyd's murder, so he talks about Black Lives Matter. He doesn't use that term himself. Portland, right, there are riots in Portland. That was a big thing to grab onto, the left. Antifa.
That's still...
Antifa is fantastic.
And I've heard Blantifa.
Which one is it?
Blantifa. It's the combination from the right of Black Lives Matter and Antifa.
Blantifa?
Yeah.
B-L-A-N-T. Nice.
I don't know how they're spelling it. They're borderline literate.
Spelling is a bit of an indicator in all of this, unfortunately. Yes.
Yeah,
I know.
For the enemy,
Sure.
Sort of.
Sure. Well, that was one of the stories that was tried with the insurrection, that it was actually Antifa dressed in hats.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty good. It's a good one. Who did? Okay. That came out. They're trying to find stories. You see them come through stories. That took about a week, I think, before that one kind of came out. It was a good one. Why not?
No, but it was already happening,
Even in the event.
Even in the event,
Okay.
yeah. I forget if it was Alex Jones or somebody else. I think it was someone smarter, but it was people cheered when they were like, they breached the Capitol, and people cheered, and then the person was like, well, no, we don't know if it's...
Yeah, it's tricky, yeah. Especially...
So that was in the moment, they had the foresight to do that.
Defend the story. Defend the story, right?
It's unfortunate that literally, it's just an escape.
So here's his capital, right? And so Trump, there's a little bit of Trump here, right? And then he's banned, so he's gone. So you see no Trump over here because he's banned. But other ones like Ghislaine Maxwell, never mentions her, never mentions Jeffrey Epstein, right? There's a zero on this side. Stormy Daniels, he never mentions. Mueller a little bit. Mueller and his angry 17 Democrats. I was watching a show when I was doing my bike ride thing this morning, and there's a bum, and they go to the bum with the timer on it. Not too many seconds left, but it's like 19, 18, 17. Cut. It's great. It's irresistible.
They're trying to kill everybody
with the
17 everywhere.
Yeah. When someone gives you 17, it's either because they're just making up a number for fun, or they're totally lying. It's something's going on. There are 17 things to do, or they're number pilling you.
They're really into number, gematria. I think that's what it's called. They're really into those.
That's good. No, when I realized that, because the 17 thing is an old thing for me, but when I realized Q was 17 and that they're looking for it.
Yes, they look for it everywhere.
No, I'm serious. Because Trump, everyone does this. People will reach for a number and they'll often say 17, right? It's a thing. So it will come out of him and they're like, yes. Yeah. It's just a complete disaster of alphabetic history. It's just, but it's, yeah. So because of this tendency, there's a little freebie for what is it again?
For the bakers.
But what's sorry, that's so funny. But the word, what is it again? Gematria or whatever?
Oh, gematria.
Gematria, yeah.
It's really bad. It's like anti-Semitic number reading.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Bible code's a good one, right? Because it depends on how the thing's formatted.
I mean, it's going to be anti-Semitic too.
Oh yeah, sure, sure. Eating babies, all those things, like all of the ones, even if it's like for liberals at this point, it's like, yeah, it was all workshopped
A lot of it
for Jewish people.
tied
Yeah,
pretty close to the anti-Semitism.
yeah, yeah, yeah. They've had success transporting it out, but you know, that's where it's. I mean, it's unbelievably horrible. So you see fraud, right? So this is the elect. So here's the election. So fraud. He talks about the election. Boom, and it explodes. And he's talking about it. Georgia becomes a huge focus. I've tried to color these, right? So this is 2020. So Georgia becomes a huge focus here for Trump. So insurrection gets talked about. A few of the longer ones, you know, this is Russia. Just how much Russia is talked about around Trump. A lot, but it goes away. He talks about a little bit. Supreme Court has its sort of blips. This is Kavanaugh, right, and so on. And then, of course, Amy Coney Barrett, Coney and Comey. That is, you know, before the election, so that pops up again. So there's that. Then everyone gets COVID because of that event. It's a really, yeah. Sexual assault. Trump never mentions that term. It gets, you know, it pops up around him. Puerto Rico, you know, there's a terrible tragedy, you know, there's a disaster in Puerto Rico. Basically doesn't talk about it. Trump's tax returns, doesn't talk about that one. North Korea, quite a lot of interaction with North Korea. I think that was an effort to get a Nobel Prize. I think so. Khashoggi, you know, horrific. That's not mentioned. Is Greenland, the little spike for Greenland. Yeah, so all of these have a big long time series of just cut those out, right? Real estate. No, before we bought, you know, the U.S. bought Alaska, which Canada should have bought Alaska. What's that? So, just a little anecdote for you. So in Australia, we grew up with what was called the Jacaranda Atlas, and it was, you know, it's a political atlas. The political map of the U.S. of the world. You realize eventually the equator was 2/3 of the way down the page. So if you're living in the southern hemisphere, and this is, you know, it's like this is not good. We're a third. So it distorts Greenland and Australia.
Racism.
Oh, I mean the hemispherism is gigantic. Just so you know. Just so you know. I mean, the U.S. has got its own thing, but then there's the hemispheris. It's bad. Anyway, so on that map, Greenland looked like it was 3 times as big as Australia, and it's the opposite. So, you know, I have this idea in my head baked in from like that Greenland's gigantic. It is a big place, but
Like you see that map up when you're a kid. It's like, oh,
yeah.
really cool.
Yeah, it's a
It's
big
the size
thing.
of Canada.
Right. But no. So it's basically a conspiracy of cartographers by Greenland cartographers. I mean, the whole naming of that place, right, by the way, is like a total disinformation thing to get people to settle there. Iceland's like, yeah, we're happy. And then, you know, everyone dies in the 1300s or whatever, right? There's this whole Viking thing.
Isn't there an island off Australia that's like not even on the maps? Because they're like no, and they're like still.
I mean, well, in a sense, yes, and it's called New Zealand, right? Because it's left off maps. There's a whole thing for New Zealand. Mm-hmm. There are maps all around the world where New Zealanders are like, "Come on, like what? Like, come on, this still happens." They're really aggrieved, as they should be. Yeah, we give it the homage. He's gonna mess some people up. No, it's a real issue. Like you could Google for that. It's a real issue. Australia, I remember for the Commonwealth Games, which is like this little Olympic Games. It was in Brisbane one year. This is a long time ago, and kids had to run around on the field and make a map of Australia, but they left Tasmania off. Poor old so Tasmania gets it as well. It's just, you know, Tasmania is an island, by the way. It's a state. You know. Oh yeah, it's a huge island. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful place. So New Zealandish, you could film The Hobbit there too, or the Lord of the Rings there. It's got temperate. It's there's snow. It's a different kind of place. Yeah, yeah. Tasmanian Devil was Van Diemen's Land, named after, because Australia was originally New Holland. I mean, it was originally not any of these things, but it was originally, when it was named by Europeans, it was New Holland because the Dutch were traveling all around the world and generally dying. They would kind of wander into the middle of the country and not make it very far. But it's like New Amsterdam, right? Manhattan, New York. And they sold it all to the English. Sold it. Australia's, you've got some lawyers on the boat, right? Some a few accountants. I'm sure Vikings had accountants on the boats as well. Sort of thinking about that, like the nerd Viking over there with an abacus. He's like,
they were the Viking nerds.
He keeps. You've got your right. You'd have to have them. So they had lawyers, and they're thinking about. So Australia was deemed to be, and maybe I'm saying the wrong Latin thing, but it was terra nullis, which was no man's land. It was unowned because Native Australians didn't farm the land. They didn't till the land. So that was the little bit of a rule. International law, which of England said, it's not even a conquest. It's not. No one owns this. We just can march in. They're good with the making up things. But yeah, it was New Holland for Australia. If any of you cross country ski and you're in Craftsbury and you're like, anyway, you will see a few of these around. There are some old decayed farm machines, which are New Holland's a brand, so it's extremely outdated. Yeah, right. Anyway, so this is just to sort of give you an overall thing, and then we'll have a temporal one which is ordered. But the idea is like, how big are these stories? This is still a long way away from. Is this a story? It's a thing that was talked about. It connects to a bit. This connects to a framing of something, right? Witch hunt is a framing. This is more general. Supreme Court is, an entity that there are stories around. Russia is an entity, so it's golf is in here. Yeah.
It's cool. You can see that fake news dies off when Trump gets, you can see what dies off when Trump gets booted versus what doesn't.
Yeah, there's no fake news anymore, is there? Right.
The Supreme Court, keeps trucking.
Yeah. And our country is gone. Yeah. But Trump is not tweeting about him anymore, right? That's gone. But yeah, he's still. And it's not massive, but this is what I think you kind of need to expect from a leader in general, right? They're not constantly the story.
Like Georgia and fraud, you can see Trump had a huge election.
This day,
huge impact on those.
Yeah. So.
He gets booted,
yeah. So it's here, and then they're still floating around. Insurrection is, he didn't have control over this one. So to the extent he has control of any of it, but this is out of hand. Fraud keeps going. That's just a few. I know it's time to go, but I will. We can go through because there's all of these, and they have the full length, and they're ordered sequentially. Sort of starting back then, and we can kind of go to the end and see what the more recent stories are. So sometimes they're people, right? Like Brett Kavanaugh is here. There are people. Sometimes there are events. Kizar Khan, right? That's the popular vote, right? That he won it, right? Because that was the story too. Like he didn't lose. Okay. Anyway, what's that?
Box 3.
The Paxoning.
You said it should just be like a hackathon.
Yeah, that's right. Which is kind of where we're going with this anyway. Yeah, I think that would be good. And if you guys are interested, we can just have a regular thing and no recordings. But
what is he, like a class?
we could have it as a scheduled event, right? Because that's just a good thing to do. Yeah, hackathon,
That would be nice.
the Poxathon.
And then, yeah, because then we can also start to like use that repo, the Uzi metrics one. Yes.
By the way, when we were kids, an epithet was "this is poxy." This is the thing. Something is bad. It's poxy, like it has the pox, right? So, and then there were variations of those, ridden with pox. This is pox. That is a pox-ridden idea. But we used to have all these strange suffixes, and my brothers and I, it was like Poxathon Brown was a thon brown was things we would add to lots of stuff. But I guess it's from capability brown and a thon from marathon. So you just use stir is a good ending as well. So you just like pile them out like this. But we would call things Poxathon Brown to say it was garbage. Yeah. We could have the Poxathon Brown. It's pretty funny.
That's our deprecated folder. It's just
right. Secret Pox. The Secret Pox Society. Sorry. Before I have some ridiculous Monty Python like things like that. But yeah.
Is there a way to upload to Usiometry? Like, I want to upload just like a couple files rather than clone the repo.
Oh no, so you should be a contributor.
Okay.
So you should. My Git library.
So it's just like the same workflow as Git.
Yeah, you push. Yeah.
Okay. Because I was hoping to just.
Yeah, so you should, and you can make Python, right? So in that directory, and you could make a subdirectory with some, depending on what the framing is for you, and git push.
Okay.
I think once you're ready, you can just say git add blah, and you have to put it in the right, locally put it in an organized space. So there's lang Python, and then just put it in something inside that. Don't fill that directory up.
I think the key is to make all the MATLAB stuff typable.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Which you can do. Yeah. Yeah. No, of course. You can compile MATLAB stuff, so it's.
If you guys try to run the Uzi, have you guys tried to run the Uzi exams yet?
We just sort through a lot of data.
It's okay.
We'll do it like probably this weekend.
I did it last night, so if you run into things, I might have run into the same thing.
Yeah. There was some Julia helped. There were a few things missing and wrong and whatever, so I fixed those up. But then there's also I do need to add some more example ones. So the one you did was Pride and Prejudice?
Yeah, I used Pride and Prejudice because I was using more Dart there, but it's too hard to follow, so I switched to Pride and Prejudice.
Okay. Yeah, so I can put, I know I need to copy in a few examples, and I have.
Yeah.
I think the thing though for the time series and stuff, which we're all kind of messing around with still, that's bespoke kind of stuff that.
And if our things are not like perfect.
No, yeah, fine. Yeah. This is we're getting them, but I do want them to be existing on Overleaf, so we're building things.
I have it all on Overleaf. There's just a few things that I have doubts about.
That's